Hi everybody! Today I'm going to be working on a picture by Anne Stokes because I recently bought this new colouring book here. It's new to me. I'm not entirely sure if it's new from Anne Stokes. I saw it advertised on Facebook and I thought it looked really cool. So it might be one she's re-released for Halloween or just put together some of her more spookier pictures for the Halloween season. But I thought it was cool anyway and I bought this from Etsy. I'll try and give a link in the description for anyone else who might be interested. And as well as all the colouring pages, there's 13, unlucky for some, colouring pages in here. It did come with this really cool art print here. And this print is the first picture in the book. The line art is the first picture in the book. And I was thinking it might be an interesting video to try and copy the colours of this image onto the actual colouring page in the book. And I was discussing this idea with my partner, as I do discuss some of my ideas with the other half, see if he has anything to kind of bounce back on. And he said, yeah, that would be really cool. But seeing as this set did also come with a giant poster of this line art, he said, why don't you colour the poster? And here is the print here next to the line art. We can see this is the actual exact same line art as that print. So I'm going to be trying to copy the colours over. My plan is to just base everything with markers. But yeah, this paper is really shiny, so I have no idea whether the markers will work on there, how my pencils will work on there, which pencils. So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. So I'll zoom us in and we'll get started. Okay, I've zoomed us in quite a way here, as this poster is really rather large. It's kind of A3 size. And another problem I've kind of realised I might run into is this fold across the middle here. I have no idea how the pencils or the markers will cope with that fold across the middle. But I'm going to go ahead and power through with this anyways. And as I said, my initial plan was to try and use my markers as some background colours going on. The first colour that I do think might actually work is for the bones of this skeleton here, and the one I've picked out is WG01. There we go, I've gone ahead and I've filled in most of the actual skeleton bones here, left a little bit of a highlight down the side, and I was looking through my markers to try and find one that I think might match to the colour of this outside kind of stone here. Let me get it on camera, this outside kind of stone here. And the one that I found is kind of nearest is this lipstick neutral, I'm thinking. I've gone all the way around the edge of the frame there now with that lipstick neutral. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find some sort of, it seems to be more of a purpley grey actually in the background there. Oh, I do have a red grey, at least for the background of the sky here. That red grey should work, so I'll grab that one. That will be RG120. And looking at my swatch sheets alongside the actual poster art here, for this bit of the background coming down into where this fiery glow starts to happen, I think what I'm going to be using, after looking at my swatch sheets here, the best colour I've picked out is the ash rose. That kind of colour I think will work for this kind of background here. There we go, again trying to show as much as I can on the camera. It's really not very easy to show, it's so huge. But there we go, I've coloured most of this background here with that ash rose now. And moving on to the actual dude himself, the skeleton we have there. This marker is from the skin tone set. This is Primrose Yellow, I think this one was called, Y195. But looking at this artwork again, we do have quite a lot of yellow coming through here on the edges of the wheel. We have it obviously on this, I presume it's the gas tank, and that has a lot of yellow. So I'm going to try and base it with this Primrose Yellow and work on top of that with pencils. There we go, with most of the yellow done. Some of the highlights as well, especially along this bottom edge here where we are closer to the actual flames. The highlights are seeming to be some sort of a light orange colour. So that's the colour I have picked out of the markers. This one is called a light orange, YR070. And I've gone ahead and started filling in a few of these highlights. That's most of the orange highlights done, I think. The base of most of the actual bike is a kind of a purple colour, a very light kind of mauvey purple. And the one that I've picked out that I think is kind of the closest we might be able to get away with is this one, V230, which is called Viola. For the frame of the bike itself, as it seems to be a much warmer colour, especially with these yellows and oranges reflecting onto it. As a base coat, I wanted something that was really kind of warm. It's called Y230, it's called Deep Cream, which is a really kind of a dark cream, maybe a yellowy colour. I have actually started basing here the kind of cool grey for his clothes there, and not much left to actually base after this. I'm thinking I might go ahead and fill in a few of these bits. His belt here, this chain and the key, the studs on his wristbands here. I might go ahead and fill those in with silver gel pen so we can have that drying and hopefully be able to shade over the top of it by the time we come back to be working with the pencils. A little bit of a darker colour for the eye sockets there. And the bits where we're going to have shadow coming in. And for his hair, I figured most of it would actually be with the pencils to get the kind of strand lines that we want to have happening there. So I'm just going to fill in a bit of a base colour with this RG030, which is another red grey. There we have his hair all filled in. And for the flames, these flames here we have on this tyre, I've decided to just go ahead and fill in the whole area of the flames with the primrose at Y195. So I'm just going to fill in these little silver kind of highlights here for his jewellery with a little bit of a gel pen. And then I'll zoom us out so we can see the picture as a whole. Now we've got all the basing done before we have to get into the actual nitty-gritty with the pencils. I've had to zoom us out quite a long way there because, as I've said, this is quite a big poster. It's an A3 size poster. I think we're looking okay compared to the actual artwork there that I've brought in. We can see those are the base colours that we should be able to work with to get something like what's happening on the other side there, just to get rid of most of the white of the paper. But this is the end of day one, so bye-bye for now. Here we are on another day after the weekend. You can see that I have been working on this little frame here actually over the weekend. I have been using the same kind of technique as I used in my stone video, but we'll go ahead and kind of recap that. But I was thinking, and this is a very big step, I'm going to be very brave here. I'm going to try and fill in this background with marker. My marker blending techniques are not the greatest, but if I can get that working, that will, I think, be looking pretty good. This background could be less defined, with the guy himself bringing in the pencils to do most of the shading there. But today's order of business, I think, is to maybe try and work something out for this background here. So I will zoom us in and we'll get started. Okay, here we are zoomed in, and I've picked out a few markers that I think I can maybe make some sort of a blend going on here. This is the darkest. I'm not going to go straight in with black. I figure if I do any black around the edges, maybe I could bring in a pencil over the top to kind of darken the very edges, but I don't really want to bring in the full-on black until I'm into the motorbike itself. So instead of going in with the black, I'm going to be going in with a dark warm grey. This is a WG09 warm grey 9. And next I've picked out warm grey 4, which is the next warm grey down. Unfortunately, that's a little bit of a jump, but to kind of ease myself into this, I think I'll just fill in these areas here behind this kind of sculpture of the frame. And now there's no turning back. Otherwise it's going to look really odd if I don't go ahead and get on with this plan. So I'm going to go ahead, I think, wish me luck, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. Yeah, here goes nothing. Again with the darkest warm grey here. A little patchy, but we're just going for something we can work with. Okay, there's a bit more of a reddish tinge to this sort of smoke that if I do end up doing will probably be with the pencil, but my main kind of concern is getting these two warm greys to blend into each other at the moment. But if I do come in with the lighter red grey, maybe that will work. Oh no, I did forget all about his arm there. But we can either make that darker or lighter and cope with that, I'm thinking. Now we're going in with the red grey, lighter red grey. Do we have something there that I think I could work with? I think we do. This marker here seems to be bleeding. Yeah, down into his arm there. That will be something we have to cope with when we get to that. We're not writing it off just yet though. We try and make these edges look slightly wispy. I do need to bring in that lighter warm grey. And this light red grey. Don't want to tear up this paper. It's kind of weird paper. Not quite blending there as much as I would maybe want it to. Can we bring in a little bit of red maybe? There isn't that much of the lighter edges showing though around here, around his hair, if I'm looking at this kind of poster right. So I'm thinking if we bring in maybe a little bit of red shading. This is one of the Arteza pencils, Spanish red, that I was using for the background there, to give a little bit of a red glow around this hair and kind of disguise the fact that our our blending there isn't going as well as we possibly could. So with a little bit of red, and maybe if we bring in a bit of white, we can make these edges look a little bit more wispy. Yeah, that's kind of working. I think we can work with it. That's going away from the actual poster page, the artwork here, but I do like the way that white is, yeah, coming over that marker blending that we've done. Oh, I think we've rescued this. If we keep this pretty scribbly, because I think we are supposed to be sort of smoky around this guy here. Maybe a light grey. Do we have a light grey around here? We have a dove grey. This is dove grey. Castle Art's Gold. Spanish red. To give a kind of dull glow to this smoke that's going on here. Yeah, that's working quite well. And can we bring in the black for a little bit of extra shading? This is the Arteza black. And we do have that little bit of a sort of disaster going on there, but I think we'll be able to blend that out. You trust me, by the time I finish, that's not going to be so much of a problem that it's worth giving up on the whole picture for. Just trying to smooth out these the top edges here. So we're looking a little bit splotchy. Our smoke in this area here is kind of wisping this way, so we're going to try and blend something along those kind of lines. Okay, we do have a lot more of the red here, probably because we're closer to the fire on the wheel. And this paper, it doesn't take super many layers of pencils. It's smoother than I would really like for colouring with the pencils. This is the RG110. I'll bring in the black for a little bit of shading around this very edges next to the carving of the frame here, and we should be able to blend in this slight disaster here, especially along that bottom edge there where there would be probably some white gel pen. If I just bring in here a little bit of the cream colour paint pen, acrylic pen. There you go. What smudge? We don't have any smudges going on there. So I'm going to go ahead and colour the rest of this background here, maybe down to about where this kind of carving here comes in, and this other side here. Get that blending with the markers going on, maybe come in a little bit with the pencils to add a smoky outline there. And then I'll catch up with you after that, maybe show you how I was going ahead with this frame here. Okay, I've gone ahead and finished off most of that background now. I've also adjusted the brightness very slightly because I think the colours might have been a little off. These do seem to be a little bit closer to life. And I think that dark colour is working pretty well for that background there. It's really making this frame stand out. And yeah, I think I was right that the black would have really flattened that out. This black here does seem to be a really warm dark colour rather than pure black. with the black being saved for areas of the motorbike, I think. So yeah, I've gone ahead and finished that off. Obviously it's not looking exactly the same. I've added my own little touches there with the little kind of smoky bits coming off around our skeleton's head there. I think that looks quite cool. And I've added in a few kind of motion lines here with using the hatching technique in the background there. Just kind of diagonal lines with the white pencil and the grey, trying to blend in that red as well as I was doing that. And yeah, that's giving him a bit of a sense of motion, I think, as well as the wispy smoke kind of coming off of him. What I'm kind of itching to do at the moment, now I'm quite pleased with how that background has actually turned out and the marker blending, is to try and get this kind of area working here, finish off this background, maybe keeping to the markers. So what I was thinking of doing is maybe trying to do most of this background, if not all of it, with the markers. Okay, I've picked out a few colours here that I think I might be able to use. I've picked out the Mellow Peach, which is YR110, and if I remember right, that's quite a bright kind of peachy colour, which I hope will go well into that kind of flame idea there. I'm hoping to be able to blend that into the R2, which is Vermilion, to give this kind of red of the flames here. And I'm hoping, I think, that if I do this background in brown here, a few shades of brown, blend that up into my really dark warm grey, I'll be able to come on with the white pencil and do a little bit of shading on top of there to kind of give us this sort of smoky effect we have going on here. So the browns I've picked out, I do have BR2, which is potato brown. I'm not sure I'll be using that one, but it's there in case. I have BR1, which is raw umber. I have the Y13, which is chestnut brown. That's a really, really dark brown, or the darkest brown I can actually find in that set. So I might be able to use that one to blend into the really dark warm grey. And I've also got here the E220, which is sand. That's quite a light brown that I don't think I'll really be needing, but I've got that on standby just in case. I've also picked out this yellow Y6, the lemon yellow, which I think will be about the right colour for these flames here, in case I get onto that at some point. So those are the colours that I'm hoping to be using, and as usual my technique is just to play around with those colours and see what I can get going on. So I'm going to go in here with this Mellow Peach. The peach just seems to be on the edges of these flames, and that seems to be upwards towards the bike there a little bit, especially on these biggest flames. Yep, that's lifting off the colour underneath. That happens sometimes when, or most of the time really, when you use a light colour over a dark colour, it tends to lift the colour and give you that bright colour coming through. So I'm going to try and add in a few little extra flames maybe. So the vermilion here is the colour that I've picked out for the flames. Hopefully that's showing up as quite a bright red. I'm going to try and blend that into the peach. This peach is seeming to be quite good at lifting the colour and giving quite a nice blend. So we'll work that in a little bit there. Maybe around the edges here. But we do want that to be blending into, I was thinking, into this potato brown. Maybe we can use the peach to try and blend those colours together. I think I'm going to take a little bit of a creative liberty there and add in my own little flames. Okay, shall we bring the chestnut brown in? Oh, I am the camera. Bring the chestnut brown in. This brown would come up in too, so I'll blend that out with a little bit of the potato brown. Warm grey 4. This is warm grey 050. Trying to blend those colours together. Make sure this white pen is working. I want to have a white outline around these flames, as this is meant to be the brightest part here, aside from a few white highlights we're going to have going on. We can bring in this kind of Prismacolor pencil, I'm hoping. Get rid of those lines there, that's not really helping the fire effect. Well, maybe what I could do is bring in acrylic marker, if I have one. This isn't quite covering the lines completely, it's not quite opaque, but I think that's giving me more of the effect that I'm really wanting here, so yeah. it's all a learning experience so far. I'm really no expert with markers. It has given me a lot of practice with the markers, trying to get these same effects going on. Maybe if we do the same sort of effect we did around his hair at the top, we'll be able to work with that. Something like that. That I quite like. That looks as if the bike is just like pulling away out of the flames. I quite like that. Kind of works with that. Oh, that's the kind of mid-tone warm grey. It looks like just building up shadows with these warm greys and the potato brown here seems to be working. Okay, I'm moving on to maybe doing my own thing here a little bit more. Trying to follow the line art just wasn't really working for me, so I'm bringing in the chestnut brown, blending it out with the potato brown so the edges are not super defined. Now we're getting something that I think is more along the way that I would draw fire, so that's looking better to me at least. These rocks are pretty super dark. It's kind of very stylized fire there, but yeah, I think that's kind of working, so I'm going to go with that. I'm going to leave that and not mess around with that way too much. I don't really want to mess with that too much more. I think, as I said, it's heading somewhere that maybe possibly works there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off these gravestones here. That's looking good to me. Yep, I quite like that. The warm colours coming in down here. I think that's working pretty well. If we do the same kind of thing the other side here, I think we'll get that working. Using here the same kind of colours I used for the background. We have the dark grey. That's warm grey 9, I think that one was. This is warm grey 4. Want to be adding too much detail here. With the white, this is the polychromos white, just to add a little bit of highlight to those edges. We're probably going to go with that, I think. And I might move down and show you how I was actually colouring this corner of the frame here, so that I can go ahead and finish off the frame and the background off camera, leave us with just a rider to be working on. So I'll just show you the colours that I have got picked out for this. And these are all Arteza pencils, as they're fairly soft pencils. So these are the colours that I have got picked out. I've got Carmine Red, which is A209. Garnet Red, which is the darkest red from the set, that is A213. I have Passion Fruit Red, A212, and I have Spanish Red, A206. And these are all the more kind of orangey reds that I thought would go quite well with this. I can't remember, is this Rose Bouvard we used in the background here? This kind of desaturated red, I thought those would work quite well with that. I've also got the Cocoa Brown there, A036, for a few little touches. I've also got the Arteza Black, which is running out, so that's another reason that I didn't want to go through and do the whole of that background with black pencil. I would have run out quite quickly. And these two, looking a little bit battered, worse for wear, I do use them quite a lot. These are both polychromos. This is the cream, 102, and the white, which is 101. And the kind of technique I was using is pretty much the same as I was using in my stone effects video that I brought out, where I coloured in the Alice statue. And the areas that are darkest black here on the actual artwork, I was doing with the black to give quite a deep dark shadow colour. But because we're scribbling, to give that stone texture, we scribble. I'll try and zoom in so you can see what I'm actually doing there. To give that texture, we scribble, and then once we've done the black, I go over the top with the red. So this is not actually a really dark, deep black. It's more of a kind of warm reddish black when we've actually finished. So as you can see there, the darkest area is not completely black. They do have that kind of reddish tinge to them because I have gone over the top with the reddish colours. And using the same kind of scribbly sort of technique that I did use in the Alice, the stone effect video, just with different colours. So that's enough black to be showing anyway, I think. The next darkest red is the Garnet Red, and yeah, going over all the areas that are the darkest and going over this black here, kind of fills in some of the little blank areas from the scribbles we were doing, so it gives that kind of reddish kind of tone to the black that we already had down. And then these other reds. The carmine red is a really bright red. That is the last one that I was putting on, just for little kind of highlights in the end. And for these two, Spanish red and the passion fruit red, the passion fruit red is the darker one, darker, more desaturated one. So that's the passion fruit red, and the Spanish red, very slightly brighter, more of an orangey tone to the red there. And with the white polychromos in the most highlighted area, a little bit of scribbling with that one to show the texture. I'll link my video where I did the stone texture with the greys, so you can have a more detailed, in-depth kind of description of how I was doing this. I've just swapped the colours out for the reds. A few little highlights with the white gel pen, dabbing it off with my finger before it dries. And of course we can go in with the different layers of pencil, maybe bringing in the cocoa brown in a few little areas. Maybe that brown can shade in onto those steps a little bit, because we did have the browns coming in. And yeah, that is how I was doing the stone. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off that frame, probably off camera. So I'm going to zoom us out now, see if we can get most of that picture onto the camera, so we can all see how we're actually standing before we actually call it for the day today, see how we're getting along. There we go, I've had to zoom out quite a way there, just so we can get most of that picture actually on the camera view. But that is how we're standing so far, and as we're looking at it from a distance here, I think we can see that that background is working pretty well. This is the kind of distance you would be actually looking at it to see the whole picture, so yeah, I think that is working really well. Today we're back again with our Anne Stokes poster. As you can see there, I've gone ahead and finished all of the frame off. And I added in this kind of Celtic cross in the background. So today we're going to go ahead and start work on our actual rider here. I'm going to bring in the markers again, I'm thinking, especially for the bigger areas, like the front wheel there. Maybe bring in a couple of cool greys and try and get that at least a little bit shaded, looking a bit as it does there, so then I can bring the pencils in on top and maybe add these reflections and stuff. So I'll zoom us in and we'll get started. There we are, I've zoomed us in. I did play about with these flames a little bit more off camera, and I think I've got those working really nicely now. And what I'm going to start on today is the flames on the front tyre, and I wanted to get this kind of effect here that I've used for these darker yellow flames. And I'd like to keep the same kind of effect, if we move that artwork out of the way, the same kind of effect as I just showed you down here. Wheel camera, yep, as I just showed you down there, onto our flames up at the top. So let's see what we can sort of make happen here. I'm going to bring in this white gel pen and just go over this edge, which would be a lot better to do after all the colouring is done probably, but I want to get things clear in my mind what I really want to see happening up here. So, and I'm coming in with this lemon yellow, which is a darker yellow. Maybe a bit daring and add a little bit of this dark yellow along these more reflective areas here. Make it look as if it's kind of chrome. And for this outside kind of glow here around the edges of the flames, what I did down the bottom, I'll show you that again, is give a little bit of a light layer of the Spanish red, I think that was, around the outside there. I went over that with the yellow to blend it out into an orange. I went around the outside of the flames with the white gel pen to give us more of a kind of a glowy effect there. And then I added in these white kind of wispy areas that we do already have going on very slightly there. I'll add in a few more of those kind of white wispy areas to look as if the light is kind of trailing there as the motorbike is roaring away. So I think the red that I was using, it is a couple of days ago now, and I've been away for a shift at work and come back, so hopefully I'm remembering this rightly. That I went in with this kind of Spanish red. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to blend those flames into the actual tyre of the bike there, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, as usually happens here. And going over with the yellow, this one is lemon yellow, again Arteza. These pencils seem to work okay, although you can't really get away with many layers because this paper is fairly smooth. Okay, I think that's looking something similar to what I had in the bottom corner. So I'll try bringing in, it was the white. I'm not sure if it was the white Prisma or the white Polychroma, so I'll try a little bit with the Prisma maybe. We do have some kind of embers that are flying off here. Look at the artwork, especially here. We have some embers that are flying off. And for that, I will probably come in with this acrylic marker onto the white gel pen for this outline. Okay, let's see if I can find some cool greys. And we'll start work on this tyre. Okay, I've grabbed a load of cool greys there. I have no idea if those will be showing up on the camera. We have Cool Grey 9, which is the darkest cool grey I do have. Cool Grey 207, Cool Grey 204, Cool Grey 5 and Cool Grey 2. I've also got the Viola, which is the pen I think I based the rest of this kind of motorbike on. And I'm going to try and get something similar to what's happening in the artwork, although this part here is going to be a little bit difficult because we do have lots of kind of peach colours kind of coming in here, but we did use the peach to give us kind of a flamey colour down the bottom, so maybe we need to bring that in. Now that was a YR110 Mellow Peach, I think. I might need to bring that one in to edge off some of this here. And this is going to be an interesting experiment, as I really have no clue what I'm actually doing here. This tyre does have a kind of a lighter edge. So that's Mellow Peach. And this cool grey is barely darker than the actual purple that we had going on, which we do still want to have showing. Maybe I should start as I mean to go on and just dive right in with the darkest colours. I really don't know. Is this even going to work? I have no idea. So this is CG9. Let's dispense with the niceties. Dive right in with a darker colour, I think. Maybe go to CG5. I'll try and bring the Viola. Inside here is the darkest colour. A little bit out of my comfort zone here, trying to colour with the actual markers. We do want that front tyre to be coming out of the picture towards us, so we do want that to be looking kind of as if it's glowing anyway, grabbing the most attention, being the brightest colour, so we'll go with that. There seems to be a kind of highlight around this part of the tyre. I want to leave the purple coming through as the main colour on this tyre because that's what seems to be going on. Maybe if I go over this kind of cool grey with the purple. I'm not sure this is looking as dark as I would like it to because I think my highlight with the yellow there is a bit too far down, which may be a little bit of a problem. Just trying to blend out that highlight a little bit more. It's looking a bit too light there. We have something similar, although I do think there's a bit more of the red. I'll bring in this carmine red, see if we can get something going on with that. That's the yellow acrylic marker there. I'm tempted to go and work in a little bit more with the actual acrylic markers, but for now I'll carry on with these alcohol markers, see what I can make happen with this tyre. This one here is mainly this dark, the darkest CG9. Let's try going in with some pencils here. I've got Cool Grey Deep here from Castle Arts. We're looking a bit too light and bright, I'm thinking. I don't really want to bring in any more markers and start tearing up the paper. I think I did start that. That was kind of starting to happen here, so I brought in Heather Purple and Lavender from Castle Arts to try and bring out that purple in the background without going too light and without desaturating. I've gone in with a few more layers than I probably should have, so yeah, I have to be very careful with the paper down there. It's not always plain sailing. especially when you're using mediums that you're not used to on paper that isn't entirely suited to the task. It doesn't always go completely right. First time you need to work on things, and I think just not giving up and throwing it away. Persevering and trying to make things work is the way to go. Blending in these flames here, yeah, that was always going to be a little bit of a task. Trying to use the, again, acrylic markers. Yep, I think we might actually have something there now. Maybe a little bit of that wispy kind of shading will help there. Okay, let's see what we can make happen with these inside spokes now. That cream colour marker, not the best, I'm thinking, for going over line art. It's not the most opaque. I don't really want to be bringing in the white gel pen here, unless it really is what we're needing. We're getting somewhere, I think. We are definitely getting somewhere there. There's not as much contrast as I would really like, to be honest. Maybe it's because I did use the greys. Maybe I do need to come in with this black. Give us more of a solid black. Not sure I like this shading here. Let's move that back. Okay, that's better. Definitely better with a bit more contrast. Okay, we're going to go with that, I think, for a while. Move on to these spokes now. We do seem to be getting quite a sort of painterly effect going on here, which I'm not entirely unhappy with. Not sure this highlight here is really helping us though. We do want it to look as if we have some sort of reflections and stuff happening here, so I'm trying to give that sort of effect. I do actually have a skin tone kind of peach colour here, which I think is matching quite nicely with this orange that we used on the bike and with the peach that we used on the flames underneath. So yeah, that's working quite well. Is there a peach marker? Do we have a peach marker? I'm thinking that might be working quite well down here at least. Oh, there it is. Oh, we got there in the end. Oh yes, that is definitely what we needed. Yes, yes, yes. I am liking this now. This is the part I really didn't really know how I was going to make work. Lots of acrylic marker in this one. Trying to figure out how to make this work. The whole outlines with the white gel pen, which is probably what I would usually do if I didn't have any artwork that I was trying to copy. In a kind of stylized way. I think that might be working. I might leave it for now. How about this part here? Yeah, I'm quite liking how that's coming at the moment. And this part of the of the kind of I'm not sure what this is, the bit over the wheel here, we're gonna have slight problems with maybe. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with it. I'm going to bring in the lighter cool grey, purpley colour. Some of this flesh tone coming in here. A little close to the actual fire here. We want this mud. Is it a mud flap? Not entirely sure. We want that to be looking as if it is shining quite a lot. Right, let's try and blend that with the Prismacolor white to give that kind of painterly effect that I'm liking how that's happening. Nice. Okay, moving on to this bit up here. I think I'm getting the hang of this. The metallic bits anyways. Okay. Yeah. I think we're working there. I think we're looking something like what we have happening there. So let's move on. Shall we move on to try doing the handlebars or stick to these kind of purpley black bits? Might be a good idea to just get all this kind of purple, cool grey sort of bits done, which would be these sort of engine-y bits underneath the seats, these parts down here. And we do have another tyre down the back there, which is not as much in focus. I'm thinking, yeah, we can stick with those darker, kind of darker cool grey markers for most of this. Not exact, but a representation of sorts there. That didn't take half as long as that tire up the top there. I think I'm figuring out doing these mechanical kind of bits. So I'm going to go ahead and do the insides of this motorbike here, and then maybe come back and show you how I'm coping with the frame. Just thought I'd briefly check in there. I've done like this back end of the motorcycle here, apart from the rear kind of mud flap thing. I'm not entirely sure that's what it's called, but this bit here on the artwork here, because I'm not entirely sure how I would go ahead with the colours there. I have brought in a few more acrylic markers. I've brought in a purple, light purple to do a few little touches here and there as highlights, and a light grey. There's the light grey that I did use for a highlight on the exhaust pipe and in a couple of other places. So I am liking the way the acrylic markers are working with that kind of painterly effect I'm getting by blending with the Prismacolors. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off the kind of insides of the bike here. I just thought I'd check in so you can see how we're going. I'll probably come back to you when I am doing this rear kind of mud flap here. This part of the bike here, I'll try and do this part here, and then maybe come back to you for this part here. I've gone ahead a little bit further there. I filled in this part, I think, and that bit I haven't done. Maybe this piece here. I don't know what any of these bits are, which doesn't really help with actual colouring them in. I'm taking my best guess at a lot of this. Bringing in, as I said before, quite a few of the acrylic markers, trying to get a kind of painterly effect on to maybe sort of resemble what we have going on in the actual artwork. And I thought we could join up back together to maybe colour this part here and get started on the frame. It seems to be a lot more of the reflections and stuff going on there, I think. Kind of reflecting the same kind of colours that's in these flames here. So maybe I should bring in a bit more of that darker yellow marker, which was it barium yellow or the other one? I really couldn't tell, to be honest with you. I think it was probably the barium yellow. The one on the wheels I've used is maybe slightly too bright, but it works, so I'm going to leave it as is. Maybe bring in a little bit of this barium yellow here. Yeah, there's another little bit of it there. We do have a slight bit of the kind of greys coming in. Let's try with one of the slightly lighter greys first. CD204, let's just see if we can make this work here. There seems to be a little bit of grey here. Maybe I should try blending that out with the yellow. That seems to be what is happening there. The grey is kind of blending into the yellow, giving that sort of greenish colour, if we can see that. Yeah, that sort of greenish tinge there. We do seem to have a bit of that going on, so maybe if I can work with that somehow. We have a little bit of common red in here. I think the main kind of idea is to reflect what's going on with those flames. Not entirely sure that's 100% right, but I'm not trying to copy the artwork entirely. Now that part I think is working better than the top part. I think trying to work with the warm colours and the cool colours there has kind of worked against us a bit. Let's bring the... Which one is this? Lemon yellow. Okay, well we do have a little bit of that kind of muddiness happening with the colours actually on here. If we just look at this kind of area as a whole, the colours there are looking a tiny bit muddy. So I think we might be able to get away with it, as it does seem to work on the actual artwork here. Eraser shavings absolutely everywhere. Seems to be the whole of this kind of pipe thing here. Is it the exhaust pipe? I really don't know. Apart from a thin highlight around the edge, which I've lost there, I can bring back in. Let's see how it works with the chestnut brown. It would be highlighted by the flames. Maybe carry on using that brown. Not that it was super easy to work with. Carry on using that brown for these bits of the frame here. And this side is more of the red. We've blending that with the cream will give us a bit more of an orange. Yeah, that does seem to be working. Okay, I think I've got something that's maybe working there. Not entirely sure. Using this dark brown, the chestnut brown in the middle of the frame here. Keeping the underlying colour as the cream kind of highlight down that side. Bringing in the red here with a little bit of cream. Blending on the other side. As long as we look as if we have some sort of a motorbike going on, I think we should be all right there. That's working, I think. So I'll go ahead and finish off the frame of the bike now. Catch up with you when I move on to the actual guy, which is, yeah, I'm looking forward to be able to get onto that. Hopefully finish the whole thing off today. So catch up with you in a minute. Okay, I've struggled on a little bit further with the frame of that motorbike. I think it's looking pretty good so far. I did end up coming up with a pretty good system, I think, using the chestnut brown, bringing in a few of the acrylic markers to shade. I am going to have to call it for today now, just to give a bit of an overview of where we're actually at. There we go. We have gone ahead and coloured most of this motorbike so far. I will carry on and finish off that bike off camera. Here we are at the beginning of hopefully the last session, and I've gone ahead there and finished most of the bike there. I think all we have really left to do is the actual rider, our skeleton guy there. So to waste no time, I'm just going to zoom us in and we'll get started. I'm going to try and keep things fairly short and sweet today. Hopefully there shouldn't be anything that I really struggle with colouring. Nothing mechanical involved here, so I'm a little bit happy with getting on with it. And the pencils I've picked out to colour the kind of bones, our skeleton guy himself. And the colours I've picked out to start with the skeleton kind of bones here we have going on. I've picked out a couple of Castle Arts Gold here, as they do have some really nice warm greys. So I've picked out the warm grey and a yellow ochre. This is burnt umber from Castle Arts, and I'm still sticking with the Arteza black there, as that seems to be working okay on this paper. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a go here on the bones. I'll probably bring in the acrylic markers again, as they seem to be working quite well to give us the highlights around the edges of shiny bits, and along the edges I think we'll be using them here along these edges here. So just to crack on, let's see what we can get going on with these bones here. To start with the kind of darkest areas with this burnt umber. I think that's most of the darkest areas there, done with that burnt umber. So I'm going to come in with this warm grey now. Use this as kind of a mid-tone, and then maybe go over the whole, or some of it at least, with the yellow ochre to try and give that kind of yellowy colour that we have going on. There we go. I've come in with the warm grey. I think we might need to actually use the black to reinforce some of these shadows here. And we do want a few kind of dramatic shadows there, because we are quite close to the fire we've got going on. Let's try bringing in this yellow ochre to warm the colours up even more, maybe a little touch. And I think once we go over the whole area with that white Prismacolor, that will smooth everything out and blend the colours to give us that painterly effect that I was really liking. Here's the white Prismacolor. Let's see how we can blend those colours a little bit. That's something similar there, maybe not quite as red and orange as we've got going on there, but I'm going to come in now with the acrylic markers with our kind of fleshy orange colour that seem to be working quite well for highlights. And we'll try and put them in the same sort of place. And I think we might need a little bit more of the red on this bottom, some part here. Okay, yeah, I'm liking that. And for the final lot of highlights, I'm going to come in with the white gel pen. Let's try this one's probably way too bright, but that does kind of show that his feet are reflecting the flames there, and I quite like that. As always, can come back in with shading anytime we feel anything isn't quite working to our liking. Tone down this yellow here a little bit by going over it with the white gel pen. And we do have some kind of some sort of blurry sort of motion lines coming off from his foot here, so I'll add those in very slightly. not going to be noticeable probably when we see it from a distance, but yeah, it's fun. Alright, yeah, I'm really quite happy with how that has turned out. Probably not totally realistic, but I'm loving that. And his clothes, let's get this pants leg done here, the leg of his trousers. And I think most of that will come in with the very dark cold grey. And just leave the highlights to be the acrylic markers, I'm thinking. And I really am liking the acrylic markers at the moment, yeah. Start us off with this peach colour for highlights. We don't want the edges to be super defined here because we are super close to those flames. We have a few bits there where the grey is coming in as the highlight colour. And a little bit of this yellow. And a little bit of the red down here. In the white gel pen, I'm covering some of this line art. It's very, very thick line art. And in the actual art, there is no line art because it's a painting. So, yeah, I'm trying to make that look something similar. Although this is quite far away, this leg, so we're not going to see all the details there. Probably gone a little bit too crazy with my highlights there, but we can come in with the black pencil. Take them back a bit. Maybe taking away some of this line art here, although we're not as close to the flames as the actual frame of the bike there. Going over with the white there to give slightly less contrast, so it does look as if it's in the background somewhat. Okay, for some finishing touches for his actual trouser leg there, I did actually do some highlights with the white gel pen. But I thought they were too bright, and we really want the white to be concentrated around these areas really close to the flames, and this leg is supposed to be further back. So I went over the highlights of the white gel pen with a bit of alcohol marker, and I think that's knocked it back quite nicely. I went over the black of his trouser leg here with a little bit of the white Prismacolor, just to lessen the contrast and make that look as if it is further back, and I'm quite happy with how that leg is looking right now. So I'm going to move on and do some more of the skeleton bones now, see what we can get going on. I've got most of the bones done there with just his skull left. I thought you guys would like to join me for a final little bit here. I've kept most of the colours that I showed you down on his foot here. On camera, down on his foot here, I've kept the same colours I've showed you down there. Brought in a bit more of the acrylic markers for highlights up here, especially on this arm that's reaching out over the top of the flames there. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish his skull off, so then we can move on to his clothes, and we're very nearly done, which is quite exciting because it has taken a long time. Just filling in the very darkest shadows here, and the eye holes and his jaw here. Probably going to bring in a little bit of this red. I'm going to keep the shadows on this side of his face fairly dark. This is the burnt umber, just to make sure we've got some really heavy shadows here. Moving on to the warm grey. Not as much of this one because most of the front of his face here is all white highlights more than anything, so we do want to look as if he is in front of those flames we've got going on there. We'll bring in the yellow ochre and blend with the white Prismacolor. I'll start by bringing in the white gel pen for the main highlights down this side of his face here. Does seem to be a little bit of the red starting to come in through these shadows, up from his hair into these shadows, so I'll just add that in there. Okay, I can work with that. I think I'll just come in with our acrylic markers and do a few little highlights, especially with this kind of peachy skin tone that we've been using. We have got some of the light orange kind of highlights there already from when we did our alcohol marker base, so I'll try and leave those in. That's the most of the skeleton bones done right about now, so I'm going to come in with the cool greys again, the same kind of cool greys we used for the motorbike, except not so much of the purple this time. I'm going to bring in the darker cool grey, which was CG209. That's most of the darkest areas now. I'm going to move on to the other cool greys, which is CG5, CG204 and CG2. So I've come in and done about as much as I can with the markers there, just to keep things fairly simple and quick. So I'm going to try coming in with a few highlights now with the pencils and with the acrylic markers, just to see if we can get the same kind of effect we've got going on in the art print there. As this is supposed to be quite shiny leather in places anyways, I'm just coming in first with the white Prismacolor to add in some not quite bright white highlights, but probably about the brightest highlights barring the acrylic marker. That seems to be looking somewhat how we're wanting it to go, so I'm going to go ahead and strengthen some of the shadows with the black now. Especially these parts on the inside where we wouldn't be getting much light at all. Okay, pretty good. Let's see if we can bring in a few acrylic marker highlights now. Starting with this peach colour, which seems to be the main highlight colour down this side. I think I might bring in a little bit of the yellow for these bits down here as well, closest to the flames. And if I were colouring myself, then yeah, I'd bring in the white. Seems to be a little bit of a red creeping in along this edge according to the art, so I'll maybe pop in a few of the little red bits of shading here. Some yellow, I think, down these edges that are closest to the flames. I'll add a few hints of shading and highlights to these bits I've done with the silver gel pen as well, just to hopefully make those look a bit more like this silver metal. All we really have left there now is the hair. So I figure for these kind of warmer dark brown sort of areas here, I'd go over and give that a base with this warm grey 4. Let's start with this burnt umber, see how well this works. I do want to bring in the black, probably further towards his head here. And I'll try and use the line art that we are given so I don't end up having to try and hide it. Let's try and blend this into the shadows here by bringing in the black. I think what might actually work for these kind of orangey edges of his hair here, as these tones are quite similar to the ones that are used in the frame, is to bring in the lipstick neutral, the colour that we did use for our frame. I'll try bringing in a bit of this Spanish red as well, as we did use that for shading the actual frame, so I may possibly regret this, but I'm going to try bringing in some grey acrylic markers here, because it does seem to be a few kind of grey hair strands that I could maybe go over with pencil. I think I'm making this a bit too complicated, so what I'm going to try and do is go ahead and just colour hair in my own style. Try and bring in a few warmer colours on the outside. Add in some white gel pen highlights, but keep it fairly similar to my own kind of style. Just going over some of these white gel pen highlights with the same red grey that we used for the background. That's RG120, just to make them slightly less obvious. Bring in the black there for a bit of extra definition. To maybe tone down a few little bits of these red on the outside. Okay, after a few trials and tribulations there with this hair, a bit of trial and error, I think we've got something that's working, and I dare say that we might actually be finished. So I'll zoom us out and we'll look at the picture all together. There we go, I've zoomed us out so we can see pretty much all of the picture there. I don't have enough space to be zooming right out to see all of it without you seeing the rest of my messy desk. So yeah, hopefully that is sufficient. And yeah, I have to say that I am super happy with how that one's turned out. I've tried to keep as much as possible closely to the original artwork there, although I did end up making a few changes. My colours had to change very slightly due to differences with the markers, the shades of pencils I was trying to use on top of there. I did change his hair colour slightly just now. I did end up adding off screen a little bit of acrylic marker into the ends of his hair here, and I think that helps give it that kind of fiery glow and blend it into the overall kind of look of the picture. And I won't drag on too long with this outro, as this is going to be a really long video as it is. The whole colouring itself took me upwards of about 18-20 hours, I think, at least around that mark. It was a very, very long, involved kind of a labour of love, this one. But yeah, really worth it in the end, I think. So yeah, that is a little tip for anyone who's wanting to colour this poster. It will take a heck of a long time. Also, the paper is fairly shiny. The markers work pretty well on it, but you can only get a couple of layers of pencil going on there. I don't think the fold line down the middle is too noticeable now that we've actually gone ahead and finished the picture. So yeah, that's about all I can say in summing up there. Hopefully you've enjoyed following along, but thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a rocking Halloween, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye!